Fred MacMurray was a delightful actor who starred in classics like My Three Sons and Double Indemnity. Do you remember him? His distinctive roles and classic performances brought him fame, but few know of the private demons that tormented him. Today we will go into Fred's life story, examining his triumphs and the destructive habits he developed, which finally contributed to his sorrowful demise. Frederick Martin MacMurray came into this world in Kankakee, Illinois on August 30, 1908. Maletta Martin and Frederick Talmadge MacMurray were from Wisconsin. He was born there. The family was musically inclined. His father played the violin in concert, and his Aunt Fay Holderness was an actress and performer in vaudeville. No one in the MacMurray family lingered for very long. There was a move to Madison, Wisconsin when Frederick was only a baby. His father did the right thing and became a music teacher there. However, the ordeal was far from done for the family. Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, the place of Frederick's mother's birth, was shortly to be their destination. Quincy, Illinois, was the setting for the early years of Frederick's life. In this place, he devoted himself fully to his academic pursuits. He was a versatile athlete who may be seen playing football, track, or baseball. Frederick worked at a nearby pea cannery to supplement his income when he wasn't playing sports. In recognition of his efforts, Carroll College in Waukesha, Wisconsin, offered him a full scholarship. At this period, Frederick found a new instrument that he loved playing: the saxophone. In search of a pastime, he took up the instrument and quickly became a regular member of several local bands. That was not the end of Frederick's musical endeavors. Evening lessons at the Chicago Art Institute helped him advance his saxophone playing. Unbeknownst to him, this musical pastime would have a profound impact on his professional trajectory down the road. An unexpected shift came to Frederick's life in 1928. For the sake of his mother's health and to see relatives, he took her to Los Angeles in his car. Nonetheless, Frederick's foray into show business would be paved the way for by this journey. It was in Los Angeles that Frederick found work as a film extra. He kept playing saxophone, but now he did it with the California Collegians to help augment his income. The band's origins can be traced back to the Warner Brothers Hollywood Theater Pit Orchestra. Though Frederick's luck was about to turn, he was still making a meager $10 each day from his side gig. After much auditioning, the California Collegians were cast in the Broadway musical Three's a Crowd. Frederick packed his belongings and made his way to New York City because of this opportunity. New York City was a place where Frederick's abilities were acknowledged. The 1930 to 1931 musical Three's a Crowd offered him a part. A stellar cast, including Libby Holman, Clifton Webb, and Fred Allen, was featured in this performance. From 1933 until 1934, Frederick maintained his successful Broadway career playing the role of Roberta with Sidney Greenstreet and Bob Hope in the musical. Hollywood took note of Frederick as his star began to soar. A contract he inked with Paramount Pictures in 1934 launched his legendary film career. Frederick MacMurray became a mainstay in 1930s Hollywood films. He was fortunate enough to collaborate with Preston Sturges and Billy Wilder, two legendary filmmakers. The list of his co-stars is practically a Hollywood who's who. Marlene Dietrich, Henry Fonda, Humphrey Bogart, and Barbara Stanwyck are just a handful of the other famous actors. Claudette Colbert was a regular collaborator of Frederick's. Beginning with The Gilded Lily, the duo co-starred in 7 films. He was romantically involved with other famous women of the time as well. He was in Alice Adams with Katharine Hepburn, Above Suspicion with Joan Crawford, and 4 productions with Carole Lombard. With a gentle touch of her fingers, the princess crosses the table. A truthful confession, a high swing and a low swing. Frederick's roles during this time typically portrayed him as a good guy with a good heart in comedy. Melodramas and musicals were other venues where he displayed his versatility. The Trail of the Lonesome Pine showcases his mastery of the archetypal good guy role that would come to define his career. The more famous Frederick became, the more money he made. In 1943, he was making $420,000 a year, which put him in the top 4 highest-paid Americans and made him the highest-paid actor in Hollywood. He cemented his position at the top of Hollywood's pay scale the following year, when his earnings soared to $439,000. Frederick refrained from serving in the military during WWII. In his Brentwood neighborhood, he sold war bonds and worked as an air raid warden, both of which he did to help the war effort. Rather than being overtly combat films, the majority of his works during this time were meant to inspire the troops. Even after the war ended, Frederick's cinematic career took off. An entertaining incident happened in 1947 while filming The Agony. In the film, the hens laid more than 300 eggs. Claudette Colbert and Frederick both signed one egg from each of the 50 cartons. After that, they took these eggs to a nearby farmer's market and gave all of the proceeds to the Braille Institute of America. Even though Frederick MacMurray was typically placed in the role of the amiable protagonist, he enjoyed playing roles that challenged that stereotype. He frequently said that the parts that gave him the most freedom to be himself were the ones that paid off the best. The noir classic Double Indemnity featured Frederick in a performance that will go down in cinematic history. An insurance salesman named Walter Neff plots the murder of his husband with his avaricious wife in this masterwork by Billy Wilder. Frederick portrayed the role. This was Frederick's favorite role because it was so different from his normal roles as pleasant guys. He made the comment in 1956 that this role demonstrated my ability to do real acting. In Edward Demetrius's The Caine Mutiny, he made yet another striking change from his usual characters. In this scene, Frederick played the role of Lieutenant Thomas Kiefer, a manipulative and cynical character. After a 6-year hiatus, he worked with Billy Wilder again for The Apartment, playing the role of corporate double-crosser Jeff Sheldrake. Because of his versatility and talent at playing multi-layered, ethically gray characters, Frederick was able to showcase his variety in these parts. They demonstrated his range as an actor and gave his filmography more depth. Towards the end of the 1950s, Frederick MacMurray started looking into television possibilities. He made a triumphant comeback to radio, co-starring with Irene Dunne in Bright Star. Frederick portrayed a news reporter for a small town in this series. Frederick, who had already found success in the film industry, was wary of delving too far into television. Hedda Hopper interviewed him in 1956, and he mentioned that he had been offered the part of Perry Mason on TV. Although he was approached, he declined the offer since he wanted to avoid doing any television work. Lots of work is involved, probably simply a lazy person. Even though Frederick was hesitant at first, he managed to achieve popularity on television. His Three Sons was a popular television series that ran from 1960 until 1972. After 12 seasons, this show became an iconic element of Frederick's career and cemented his position in television history. Although he was on My Three Sons, Frederick kept appearing in movies. The Absent-Minded Professor and Son of Flubber, both produced by Disney, featured him as Professor Ned Brainerd. Frederick won over a new generation of fans with his humorous skills in these flicks aimed toward families. Frederick was able to secure advantageous conditions for his television employment thanks to his star power. His contract with My Three Sons stipulated that he would be videotaped first in 2 distinct month-long filming blocks. Frederick was able to run his property in Northern California, play golf, and pursue film work more freely because to this compressed schedule. We have covered Frederick's career to a sufficient degree, in my opinion. We will now go into his love adventures. Frederick, like many others, had a supportive companion who helped him achieve his goals. During his lifetime, Frederick MacMurray was married twice. A spirit of camaraderie, mutual regard, and love pervaded both partnerships. In 1934, a tragic meeting took place amidst the hustle and bustle of New York City streets. In the Broadway production of Roberta, young and ambitious actor Frederick MacMurray was seen acting with the California Collegians. At this period, he met Lillian Lamont, who would later become his first wife. There was an instant and powerful bond between them. In the dazzling atmosphere of Broadway, the two fell head over heels for each other. Unfortunately, MacMurray had to leave New York and his new romance behind when the demands of his burgeoning profession drew him back to Hollywood. When MacMurray got back to Hollywood, he got caught up in a funny scuffle. A charming actor was approached by gossip journalist Luella Parsons, who is notorious for interfering in people's romantic lives. MacMurray graciously turned down her offer because his heart had already spoken volumes. Parsons was not pleased by this denial. According to other sources, the slighted journalist retaliated by attempting to derail MacMurray's career. Contrary accounts suggest that newspaper magnate William Randolph Hearst had already chosen a different date for the actor, and that MacMurray had declined his offer. Time seems to have healed all wounds, whatever that may be. The bond between MacMurray and Lamont grew stronger as time passed and they were physically apart. They gave the press an unusual announcement in 1934. Their engagement was just a trial run. By going against the grain, they were able to test the waters of compatibility before committing formally. MacMurray elaborated on their rationale, saying they wanted to make sure their personalities could work in tandem with their chosen professions. This careful approach demonstrated the couple's realistic outlook and their dedication to establishing a solid basis for their partnership in the early months of 1936. It was time to jump in, and MacMurray and Lamont were prepared. The pair, along with MacMurray's mom, got on a plane to Las Vegas on the evening of June 19, 1936. Secretly tying the knot away from the paparazzi was their aim. Everyone was in the dark about the wedding, without warning, taking friends and studio authorities by surprise. There was a mad dash to find the missing actor after word got out that they had vanished. They had no idea that MacMurray and Lamont were saying their vows in the world's most famous wedding location. On the same day that they surprised everyone with their impromptu wedding, the newlyweds and MacMurray's mom returned to Hollywood. They started their lives together as husband and wife with this discreet ceremony. A two-story colonial house in Brentwood with 10 rooms was the MacMurrays' new home in 1945. Jimmy Stewart and Henry Fonda were among the prominent faces that lived in their new neighborhood. They became known as one of Hollywood's happiest couples after swiftly settling into home bliss. Even though they liked to keep to themselves, the MacMurrays were far from reclusive. They took pleasure in entertaining their Hollywood friends at both small and large occasions. Clark Gable and Carole Lombard were good friends of theirs, and they frequently barbecued together on Sundays. The presence of Lombard always guaranteed an exciting atmosphere at these events. She had a way with words and antics that would keep the crowd in stitches, bringing a little bit of the glitter of Hollywood to the MacMurrays' otherwise tranquil domestic life. Their marriage was full of joy and love, but it also had its share of difficulties. Renal and cardiac difficulties plagued Lillian for a long time. People assumed that the couple's choice to adopt was based on these health issues. Susan, the first child of the MacMurrays family, was born in 1940. In 1942, the adoption was officially finalized, bringing the pleasures of motherhood into their home. They adopted Robert, a kid of 1.5 years old, 4 years later, to add to their family. Despite the happiness their family brought into their lives, Lillian's health kept deteriorating. Early in the 1950s, her health began to deteriorate, and she died in June 1953, not long after the couple celebrated their 17th wedding anniversary. A biographer of MacMurray interviewed Lillian's cousin in 2006, years after the fact, and the cousin admitted that Lillian had bulimia. Her lifelong struggles with health may have been exacerbated by her eating condition, which may have its roots in her time spent modeling. For MacMurray, losing Lillian was a devastating blow because she had brought so much happiness into his life through love, companionship, and family. Another shock was in store for MacMurray as he dealt with his loss. In 1953, MacMurray ran with June Haver, an actress he had worked with briefly in the past, at a gay 90s-themed party that his buddy John Wayne had arranged. They had briefly crossed paths in 1945 when filming Where Do We Go From Here, but otherwise didn't contact much. Even though it had been 8 years, neither of them was eager to attend Wayne's party. Even so, that fateful night would alter the trajectory of their lives in ways they could never have imagined. Despite MacMurray and Haver's reservations about going to the party, they ended up leaving together. Something had clicked, and they became an item shortly after. This was not an easy moment in June Haver's life. Dr. John Dusick, her fiancé, died unexpectedly in 1949. She seriously considered making a life-altering decision as a result of this tragedy. Hover, who was deeply religious, had considered entering the convent. She went so far as to meet with Pope Pius XII in 1951 to talk about her vocation. After this encounter, she made up her mind to enter a convent. But Hover came to the realization that the convent life was not her destiny after 8 months. Unbeknownst to her, her real purpose would bring her full circle to the entertainment industry, where Frederick MacMurray embraced her. Upon reuniting at John Wayne's celebration, MacMurray and Haver's romance flourished. They decided to take their relationship to the next level once a socially acceptable amount of time had passed since Lillian's death. Their love was one of a kind, and so was MacMurray's proposal to Haver. For the purpose of proposing, he bought the good luck pinky ring, which belonged to performer Red Skelton. After an ordinary trip to the pharmacy, the real proposal happened, bringing a little bit of ordinary enchantment to their love tale. In the first week of August 1954, the couple made their wedding date public. But they really tied the knot on June 28, more than a month ahead of schedule, which shocked their friends and the press. The wedding of MacMurray and Haver took place in the gorgeous Ojai Valley Inn, thanks to the assistance of their travel agency owner friend Ray Cardillo. In the aftermath of the unexpected wedding in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, the newlyweds went on their honeymoon as MacMurray finished filming The Far Horizons. Haver had a major operation after a fall at Fox Studios a few years before, according to an interview MacMurray gave in 1954. Consequently, the couple had doubts about Haver's fertility. In spite of this obstacle, MacMurray and Haver chose to adopt a child. Lori Ann and Katie Marie, who were born to them in 1956, are fraternal twins. Reminiscing with fondness, MacMurray recalled how they took in the twins as soon as they were born. After her marriage to MacMurray, Haven decided to take a break from her profession in Hollywood. In a 1958 episode of the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, she portrayed a role that would be her last appearance on screen. Are you happy with her decision? Haver seemed to be, asserting that she no longer wished to pursue acting. She found happiness in her newfound responsibilities as a wife and mother. I have a lot to keep me busy now that I have 4 children in the family, she explained regardless. MacMurray made it plain that he would not obstruct Haver's decision to return to acting, and he supported her decision. He expressed his desire to avoid being the one to remove her from the screen. The decision is up to her. I prefer to have her at home, but I'm cool with it if she wants to photograph something. Marriage number 2 for MacMurray, following his first to Lillian Lamont, was a happy and stable union. Their unbreakable bond was built on a foundation of mutual respect, shared ideals, and a dedication to family life. Even though Frederick MacMurray had a happy and fulfilling existence on a personal level, in his later years he started to feel a shadowy side to his reality. As her health deteriorated and her mortality loomed, the carefree days of Hollywood glory began to fade. Indulging in smoking for as long as he did will lead to negative consequences for MacMurray. A bitter reminder of the price he had paid for his vices, he was diagnosed with throat cancer in the late 1970s. Even while he won that first fight, 10 years later the cancer would come back, putting his health at risk even more. Cancer was just one of several health problems. A major stroke that MacMurray had in December 1988 damaged both his speech and his ability to move his right side of his body. Despite therapy helping him recover to an impressive 90%, the harm had already been done and the physical toll was obvious. Leukemia, a merciless disease that MacMurray had battled for more than a decade, dealt the death blow. His multiple illnesses had weakened him to the point where he died of pneumonia in Santa Monica, California, on November 5, 1991. Even if MacMurray's private life had been rich with happiness and success, he was eventually consumed by the passage of time and the weight of his own decisions. A revered Hollywood icon's life was cut short by the insidious evil that had infiltrated his environment.